Back for another week, guys. I'm going to zip my jacket up so no one can see the red flannel underneath because it's freezing. I'll open this by saying that you might think this is crazy, but I have ducted heating in my room that comes from the roof, and whoever built our house did a horrible job because the air comes straight off the unit into my room first, and it dumps all of the hot air into my room and leaves none for the rest of the house or the rest of the area that this unit serves. And what it means is my room gets really hot really quickly, but the heating doesn't turn off because the rest of the house is cold. So it means my room just keeps heating up, and then it becomes like an oven, and then I almost cook in here, and I hate it. I get flustered, I get panicked, especially at night. If it comes on at night while I'm asleep, I hear it come on and I get instantly triggered because I know I'm going to overheat and like start sweating and have a horrible sleep. So every winter I will tape up my vents, and I have taped my vents up. This time I went full and like pulled them out of the ceiling and taped them up so that no air can get in here at all. Because if I don't do a very good job, the vents start to whistle and it's really annoying. So yes, I'm freezing cold and I'm rugged up. Anyway, what are we going to talk about this week? So firstly, what's happened since the last episode? I finally booked my flights to Stockholm. Took me a while. I booked them last week, towards the end of last week, I reckon on Thursday, and a week ago. I booked them a week ago, and I'm leaving Sunday next week. So took me a while to get them, but I did. They cost me a lot of money. So they cost me like $3,000. I wasn't going to pay for the extra legroom, and then I thought about how I was going to feel being 6'5", 195 centimeters, sitting there on an 11-hour flight with no legroom. I wondered how I was going to feel, and then I was like, you know what? Fuck it, pay the extra $500 because you're going to feel a lot better if you pay the extra $500 than if you don't. So I paid the extra $500 to get the legroom all of the ways. So yeah, and my trip duration is I leave on the 14th and I get back on the 23rd. That's it. It's a Stockholm. Real quick trip, Stockholm and back, which is bizarre, but I just don't want to be away for any longer. So that is what it is. I flew up to Sydney on the weekend. This was a bit of a weird, bizarre experience to coach some of my clients one-on-one. Never thought I'd actually fly interstate for a day trip to coach clients, but I have, and it was really fun. It was really good to just, test my knowledge and see where I'm at with coaching people with Hyrox-related stuff, and we're good. Lots came out. They learnt a lot. I learnt a lot. It was cool to just let my brain do what it does. I think I'm realizing that the longer I do this. I know a lot, and I don't need to panic, and I don't need to study for this test because I know it. So I can just show up and it happen. Like when I plan these podcasts out, I don't have the full script here that I read. I just have dot points because I know the answer to the question. I don't need to study for it. So that's really cool. It was a really cool experience, and I'm excited to see what they can do. They're training for Hyrox in Melbourne. They're going to raise a bit of money for that as well, which I'll touch on once all that stuff gets released. But they're doing mixed doubles in Melbourne at the end of the year, and I'm helping them get there in good tip-top shape. Good tip-top shape or just tip-top shape? And training update, man, my body feels good. I don't know where we last touched off, but towards the end of last week, I believe it was, I started to feel a bit tired because my sleep was lacking. I wasn't putting in the energy that I should have to making sure I was getting to bed early enough, and that meant I was tired. And I got to Friday's session and I was a bit cooked. I think I was a bit cooked too because I pushed Wednesday's tempo session a little hard, which I'm going to touch on the methodology behind how I determine hard and not hard a little bit later in the episode. But I pushed it a little bit too hard and then felt it on Friday, lack of sleep, and then it just kind of like I was cooked by the end of the week. This week has been a lot better. Training has felt really good. I'm really happy with how the program's going at the moment. It's just good. This is my 4th week, I believe. I was actually going to check this before. I think this is my 4th week of running over 50 kilometers which I haven't been able to do that for a while, to be honest. So the past 12 weeks, I was sitting under 40 kilometers a week for a long time. And then this has been the fourth week in a row that I will have run over 50, likely to be close to 55 kilometers, which is awesome. I'm fucking stoked with it because the work that I've been doing is paying off. My body feels so much better, and being on this new program or being on my program where I'm trying to figure stuff out, it's working. And that is all I wanted. All I wanted to do off the back of Brisbane was get back to kind of where I am now and have a good place to build from. So if I'm being honest, I'm a little annoyed at Worlds and the timing of it because I'm starting to figure some stuff out with my program. Like, for example, yesterday being Wednesday, I do a tempo hierarch session, or a tempo hierarch session, let's call it that. Or I call it build base aerobic. And I started the session with a 30-minute tempo run effort on the treadmill before getting into some mixed run and movement stuff. And what I realized in that 30-minute run was that I don't do a lot of single pace long duration runs. Most of my running is intervals. Like, I'll do intervals Monday, I'll do mixed running and movements on Wednesday, and I'll do intervals on Friday. So I don't really ever run for one set pace for an extended duration. And my hip and mechanics started to break down towards the end of that 30 minutes. So I think for me, that session is going to be one of the key pieces in, moving myself forward. So I'm going to try and keep in an extended tempo effort at the beginning of Wednesday's session so that I can get in that like continual, impact or loading of the muscles that I use while I'm running. So I'm figuring things out like that are just really cool. And it's super helpful for me to be able to pass that on to the people or the clients that I coach as well, which is fun. So first thing, do I touch on the topics before I talk about them, or do I just roll through them? I'll touch on them. So I've got a few things that I want to talk about today. I want to talk about recovery. I want to talk about heart rate monitors and training. I want to talk about my coaching priorities. And then I've got a little gripe that I want to rant about at the end before I get into like listener questions. And I asked an interesting question on my Instagram that I think is going to offer some fruitful conversation, if you will. So first up is recovery. Now, I think in terms of training and stuff, I feel like recovery has two different categories, right? There's the extras, there's a secret menu, and then there's just the main menu, right, that everyone knows about. And I feel like the main menu is important. It is like sleep. I refer to it as like sleep, hydration, nutrition. I guess hydration probably falls in nutrition, but sleep, hydration, nutrition are the main ones. And training balance as well. I think that is important when it comes to your recovery, because if you're doing too much, you're never going to be able to recover from it. So your training balance needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to, that side of things. Now, I'm just paranoid this thing's not recording. It is. All right. Maybe I'll press this little button on the side. I don't want to lose my podcast because that would be a spew. Now, I think a lot of people skip that exciting, boring. Most people skip that boring stuff and they jump straight to the exciting, fun stuff like the saunas, the ice bars, the recovery boots, cryo chambers, needling, oxygen chambers, all of that stuff. They skip all of the basics and jump straight to the secret menu because they're like, it's secret, it's cool, it's exciting. Yes, it is. It's great. But it's also going to have no effect if you don't nail the basics. For me recently, I realized my nutrition was lacking big time. I don't know if I spoke about it on the last episode, but I think now I'm finally starting to see the positive benefits to all of the, changes I've made in my nutrition come through in the fact that my body's starting to have a recomp. My composition is changing. Body composition is changing. I feel like I'm leaning out a bit. I'm putting on a bit of muscle. I'm the heaviest I've been, but I'm also the fittest and the fastest I've been in a long time. I remember last time I felt really good and was racing Hyrox well, I was probably like 96 kilos. I'm like 100 kilos now. Like on a good day, on a heavy day, I'm probably like punching 102. So I'm the heaviest I've been, but I feel the best I've been. And I think it's because my body is holding weight in the areas that it needs to. And my nutrition's dialed in, so I'm recovering properly from my sessions, which means I'm actually getting results from my training, which is what I've put down a lot of, I guess, my progress to. So for me, nutrition was the weak spot. I've worked on that now. I make sure I get at least 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep a night. That means we are in bed at 8:30, trying to wind down before getting to sleep, ideally at 9 o'clock. One of the biggest things that has helped mine and Amy's sleep is no phones in the bed. Not allowed. If you want to read something or you want to look at something, you got a Kindle, so you read that. Otherwise, you're just lying there trying to go to sleep. And I think that has changed a lot for us because you just sit there scrolling. You just sit there looking at your phone for ages. And then before you know it, it's been like 30 minutes and you're wired because your phone's bright. Whereas you get into bed and you start looking at your Kindle. Bro, I read like 4 pages and I'm asleep. So it's been the best because I've been getting 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. So my sleep's dialed. My nutrition is now dialed. Hydration is just something that happens in the background. So then if I'm nailing all of those things, then I give myself permission to try and put energy into other recovery protocols, which might be sauna, ice bath, boots, all that kind of stuff. So I think long story short is a lot of people kind of mess up that balance of where they should put their energy, and they kind of get rest and recovery confused. I feel like they're separate things. Like resting's great, but if you're resting and you're not actually helping yourself by eating like shit, or you're not, taking steps like stretching or recovering, then you're kind of just not really doing anything. So I feel like you get confused there. My actual recovery routine outside of sleep, hydration, food, and all that kind of stuff is I love a sauna and I do cold plunge. I call it cold plunge now because I'm not ice bathing. I'm jumping in the pool because it's cold. And I do recovery boots. I've actually got some right next to me from Olympia massage chairs. They're so cool because they're like completely portable. They have little pumps on each leg with a battery. So I could essentially take that on an aeroplane with me if I was flying business class and use them on the aeroplane, which is crazy. So sauna, I try and sauna every day, 15 to 20 minutes, 25, 30 if I'm, feeling all right. I try and stay in there until I get really hot and a bit uncomfortable. I use it as a bit of meditation, but I like it because I feel like if I do it straight after a run or an intensity session, I can kind of extend that aerobic benefit slightly longer because I'm sitting in there, my heart rate sits a little higher. It sits, instead of being at like 60 beats a minute, it sits at like 90 to 100. And then without me having to put my body through any stress or impact, I'm just chilling. Then I get out and I usually jump in the pool and then just jump straight out, just a bit of a refresher. But if I have a double training day where, like, for example, Mondays I'll train in the morning and train again at night, I'll try and stay in the pool for like a minute, 90 seconds to help reduce a bit of inflammation so that my second session feels a little bit better. Now, on the cold plunge or the ice bath, I try and use it strategically because it reduces inflammation. But inflammation isn't necessarily the enemy. I made a post about this during the week. It's good. We need inflammation. Inflammation is essentially recovery. So for me, I forgot to start a timer at the beginning of this, and last time it like messed me up because I didn't know how long we'd been going for. For me, sometimes I like to build inflammation. I like to get more inflammation going. For example, after a strength session, if I jump in the sauna, the goal of that sauna is to try and get more inflammation because I want to try and create more blood flow so that I can recover even better. So after a strength session, if I've saunaed, I'm not going to cold plunge because I want to keep that inflammation there. Same thing applies if I have just gone to the myo, which I did on sometime during this week. I got in the sauna when I got home because she just needled me and done some cupping, and I wanted to try and create more inflammation so that my body could recover even better. And I don't know if that's backed by science, but in my head, it works because it tracks with what I understand. So sauna I use the most. Ice bath I use sparingly, depending on what's going on. Every Sunday I'll jump in the pool and stay in there because Sundays is my rest day. And I feel like it's just good to get in there for a bit. It sucks because I haven't done anything. So I've gone in the sauna, and then I'll just jump in the pool and try and stay in there for like 2.5 minutes. And it is very cold at the moment. It's like sitting at around 10 to 12 degrees. So that's kind of what I do. And then in terms of recovery boots, I'll try and use them on double training days or on Sundays if I feel, like chilling for a bit. I'll just put them on, or if we're watching TV. Another thing I've been trying out too is wearing tights. So there are sometimes I'll get out of the sauna, and if it's a cold day particularly, what I'll do is I'll put tights on. I got sent some by 2XU, and I'll put full length tights on, and I'll just wear them for the first part of the day. And the compression, like, it's something I'll probably do going over to Worlds. I might just wear full length tights while traveling, because it feels nice. Basically, I don't actually know the science behind why it works, but it's meant to help. So if you know anything about that, great. Oh, my lighting just died. That's bad. Maybe I should turn the light on. I'm going to do that. Hang on. Pause. Sorry, I had to fix my lighting. Doesn't affect anyone who's listening, but people who are watching, most people actually watched this, which is crazy to me. I don't watch podcasts on YouTube, especially when they're not like, there's not multiple people, chatting, but a lot of people actually watched this last week or last time I put it out, which is cool. So yeah, if you want to look up how compression can help recovery, go for your life. I haven't, and I might at some point, but we'll get there when we get there. So if I was to categorize recovery as non-negotiables versus nice to haves, I would put like nutrition, hydration, and sleep in the non-negotiables. You need to nail that down. If you are serious about your training and you want to get better, you need to nail down those basics, and training balance too. The nice to haves are the stuff that gets sprinkled on top, like the saunas, the ice baths, the boots, the compression, the dry needling, like all that kind of stuff gets sprinkled on top. They're the nice to haves. On to topic number 2, which is heart rate and training. So story time. Recently, I've been using a chest strap a lot lately, and it died. It stopped working properly, and it was doing my head in, because for my training, right, which is what I mentioned a little bit earlier, is I cap most of my sessions, or most of my sessions have a heart rate cap. My runs, where I can control, have a heart rate range I try to hit. Most of my sessions, though, will have a heart rate cap, and that cap dictates the effort. So my Monday session, the threshold session, I don't have a heart rate cap for that. I have a heart rate range, and the idea is to sit in my threshold zones, which is like 163 to 172 or 165 to 172, right? That's where I need to be for my efforts, and I try and sit there as an average. On Monday afternoon, which is like my aerobic top-up session, my heart rate cap is 152. I've already like stressed my body out with a big dose of training in the morning. I come back in the afternoon, my heart rate, I'm not going to try and push it up to that high because I'm cooked. So my heart rate cap's 152, and I just try and get in a good amount of work around that area. And for me, that is like T3, which is low to mid aerobic heart rate. Wednesday, my heart rate cap's like 158. Now that's like getting mid aerobic zone for me. And as long as I don't go over that heart rate, the session is good. So I try and change the pace on the runs and the effort on the movements to kind of sit within that heart rate range. There are movements that I make exceptions for, like burpees, wall balls, stuff like that. Your heart rate's going to spike. It is going to spike in the race. It's going to spike in my training. That's fine. But as long as when I get back on the run, it might spike up to say 163. As long as when I get back on the run, it starts to come back down to that 158 range, then we're good. So for me, a lot of my training is dictated by heart rate, and my heart rate monitor was playing up, which meant like during a session, I might be sitting there with my heart rate at 157, riding that line, knowing that like, cool, if I hold it here, I'm good, I can keep going. And then it would just drop to 80. And I would be fucking pissed because I need it to be accurate so I can know what to do. Like, yes, I can judge by feel, but sometimes I lie to myself, right? So having a heart rate and having heart rate data is helpful for me. Anyway, that led me to deep dive into what heart rate monitors actually work and which ones are better. Now, I put a bit of a poll on Instagram, and A lot of people actually use their heart rate monitors. There are 3 types of heart rate monitors that people use, or that I know of, 4 actually. The first type is your chest strap, right? Then there's the wrist sensor from your watch that just automatically reads it. And then there's like the armband, which I recently got as well. And then you can obviously do it manually. No one's doing it manually anymore. I remember doing that when I was a kid, but nowadays we've got sensors for that. So the least accurate of all of them is the wrist sensor on the watch. Now, this is just general advice for anyone doing training and trying to track their heart rate through their sessions and stuff. If you are doing anything but steady state cardio, being running and riding, or even Stairmaster's okay, anything where you're not like actively moving your wrist and your arm a lot, this is going to be pretty accurate, the wrist sensor from your watch. As soon as you introduce wrist movement, anything like that, it's inaccurate. Like if you think about it, it reads your blood flow, right? So if you're gripping something really hard, like handles of a ski or a row, blood flow isn't going to be as consistent or as accurate because you're going to be constricting it. So, or if you're moving around a bunch, birds are trying to fly in the window. If you're moving around a bunch, it's not going to read it up or read it properly. So this is going to be the least accurate. The chest strap I always thought was the most accurate, and I still kind of believe it is because it's literally reading your heartbeat. That wasn't until I started having issues with it. Now I think it's because I sweat a lot. Once it gets super sweaty, the sweat interacts with the electrode, which is the thing that reads your heart, and it just kind of messes the reading. The other option is you get an armband. Now, I just bought the Coros one. That comes highly recommended from a lot of people. I haven't worn it enough to actually give you an opinion on it, but that is what I'm using, that and the chest strap, to read my sessions. Now, most people, here we go. Let's find out what a lot of people actually had. So a lot of people use the chest strap. Next is the wrist sensor, and some people use the armband. See, I had a lot of people reach out and tell me to get the armband when I asked what heart rate monitor I should get. So I think the armband is like the new tech that's working. And I think particularly in hybrid stuff, because you're doing a lot of moving around and the chest strap sometimes can get loose. I know for me, particularly when I row, when I lean forward to try and, complete the stroke, the heart rate sometimes comes off and it doesn't get an accurate reading. Anyway, massive tangent on heart rate monitors, but why should you pay attention to your heart rate during sessions and during training? It's just good data to have. Like, knowing how hard you're pushing is going to save you the effort of trying to know when you're pushing too hard. Like for me, if I have a heart rate cap, then I cannot lie to myself and tell myself, oh, you're actually all right, just keep going. Because I do that all the time. If I have a heart rate cap, if I hit the heart rate cap, I got to slow down. That's the rules. It's so simple. It's open and shut. There's no bargaining. There's no decisions. There's no weeding around it. If I hit the heart rate cap, I got to slow down. And that is final. So for me, it makes it so much easier to make sure that I'm sticking to the overarching plan and training balance, to touch on, that important stuff with recovery, because I've got a heart rate cap. So I know I just follow that rule. If I've got a good heart rate monitor, that's going to help me stick to that. Another reason why tracking heart rate or using your heart rate to kind of govern effort is useful is on days that you're really tired, your heart rate's probably going to be super responsive or not responsive at all. So you're going to be able to tell by where your heart rate's sitting how you're actually feeling. And on days where it's like super responsive, you're going to have to slow down because it's going to spike up super quick. On days that it's not as responsive, you will know because you'll be sitting there like, why am I dying and my heart rate's not moving? You probably need to chill out. So it's a sign of it flags recovery and need for recovery as well. So it's super useful in that context too. So if you're not using heart rate data to track your training and stuff, I would suggest doing it. Now, I recently had a Lactate and VO2 max test, and that has been the most useful thing for my training to date, because it gave me, for my running specifically, it gave me heart rate zones. The lactate threshold test gave me heart rate zones and paces that I need to stick to sit within certain zones. And for me, that has been fantastic because I just base my running off of it. I just pick my pace targets, or my pace ranges based off that test. So if you can go and get one, I would suggest not doing a VO2 max test. I've had VO2 and lactate. And I think VO2 is just not super relevant. If you're doing pure running, maybe a VO2 max test is useful, but for high rock stuff, I think lactate threshold's better. VO2 doesn't really give you a whole lot. I honestly don't think it's relevant at all, because I know there are people that have far higher VO2 maxes than I do, and I would probably beat them in a high rocks race, and not vice versa, because that doesn't really work the other way around. And I think VO2 is heavily dependent on size as well, which is more relevant to pure running, if you think about it. Like, smaller people tend to have higher VO2 maxes because I think they don't have to service as much muscle or something like that. There's a reason, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but that kind of makes sense if you look at it in the context of pure running. Someone smaller who has a higher VO2 max than me is probably going to beat me in a run, but they may not beat me in a high rock solo pro. So I think lactate threshold is a better metric to go by. And for me, that has helped me a lot with my heart rate monitor training. So please, if that's something that you can do, do it. If not, just be aware of your heart rate zones and try and, I guess, use them the best you can in training. Now, the caveat to all of that is be aware of how it feels as well when you're doing things, because in a race, you may not have heart rate data, you might not have pace data, you might not have any of that. So you need to be able to just go by feel. So I try and get, like I said last time, I try and get all my athletes to learn how things feel so that when they're out there, they're not relying on all this tech. It's good to have, but at the same time, you got to learn to do things without it, because just in case it's gone, you can still function and you don't spiral, which is important in a race. On to the next thing. So I've had a realization recently that was interesting. When I first started my online coaching business, I feel weird calling it a business, but it is technically a business. At the beginning of 2025, I think, I had my sights set on just getting as many clients as possible. And it was hard because they weren't coming. I was getting no one, right? No one, which is when I decided to build my social media to try and get in more clients. And then I started to pick up more clients, and I was like, sick, more. And I picked up a bunch. And then I finished High Rocks Brisbane, and I spent 2 weeks trying to catch up on programs and get everyone up to date and all this kind of stuff. And it just put me in a hole mentally. I just had no brain left, and it was really hard. But it led me to kind of realize that more's not better. And then I was actually talking to my psychologist about it, and how this idea of everything has to be like, if you want success, you have to work hard. Hard work is the only way to be successful. There's no alternative. And I agree, you got to put in work. I don't think you have to work hard, but you got to put in work. You cannot expect to get something from just sitting there doing nothing. It's not how it works. You got to put in some effort. But I don't agree with the fact that you have to bury yourself with hard work to get what you want, or to get, I guess, the idea of success. So I looked at after Brisbane, and I was like, I do not want this for myself. I don't want all of these clients. I don't want too many to manage, which means no one's getting my full attention, and it sucks. I was getting annoyed. I was getting annoyed at, all of the responsibilities that came with it, but it's my job as a coach. So off the back of that, I realized that I don't actually want more clients. I just want to do a better job and provide a better product for the ones that I've got. So I stopped trying to take on people because I haven't put anyone on but just after Brisbane, because I don't want to at the moment. I've got a few spots opening up, and I will mention them on my social media when they come available. But in the meantime, I'm just focusing on the people that I've got and giving the best I can, because it's better that way. I would rather have 5 to 10 high quality clients that I'm actually giving everything to, than 20 to 30 people that are getting little pieces here and there, and they're not getting the full experience. And I think what I would like to move towards is having that top tier, one-on-one stuff, which I just give my heart and soul to. And then I have, other programs that people can jump on that aren't looking for that one-on-one, super, personal kind of program, but they'll still get a high quality program just at a lower price rate, and they won't have that super in-depth one, like super contact. They won't have a heap of contact with me all the time. It'll be like if they need something, they can reach out, but it won't be that every week kind of check-in, or I don't really do check-ins with my athletes. I tried doing a check-in document and I hated it. And I don't think a lot of people like filling them out. It is for some, but it's not for me. I prefer to just have a conversation with my clients. So if they need something, they message me and I answer. That's it, right? I feel like that's way better. I don't try and tell them you can only message me at this time on this day. I just say, if you need to message me and I'll reply. And if you want to set up a call, we'll set up a call and we'll chat and we'll go through things. But if you're happy just messaging, then we'll just message. So I think I would like that for my one-on-one clients. And then maybe I have like set times where people can message me or call with the other clients. But long story short is my realization with my coaching was, instead of chasing money, go back to doing what you love about it and what you like about it. And that's just helping people. And to tie it back to my psych, what we have decided with everything that I've been doing, the stuff that's worked best for me has been the stuff where I don't chase the end result. I don't chase the money. I don't chase the success. I don't chase the fitness. I just kind of do the things that I feel like doing, or do the things that I kind of, feel right doing on a daily basis. And all of that stuff ends up coming. So for me, I'm going back to the basics with my coaching. What did I get into doing it for in the first place? Was to help people achieve their goals, help people feel good about themselves and find the structure and learn. One of the things I really try to do with the people that are willing to do it is teach them how to do things. Teach them, the ins and outs of why I'm getting them to do stuff, so that they can learn it and ideally go and apply it beyond the coaching relationship we have. Once they leave me, I want them to be able to go and, almost coach themselves, because isn't that what you want? I worked with a social media coach. Now I can ideally go and do that myself. Any good coach will get their client to the point where they can do that. But the reason that people stay with them is because of their expertise, their knowledge, experience, and honestly, because they can't be bothered doing it themselves. That's why I got a coach for a long time, is I didn't want that responsibility. I wanted someone else to have it. So long way of saying that with my coaching, I'm really going to keep the limited, like one-on-one stuff, limited spots, real tight. I'll open up some other opportunities for more people, but in terms of one-on-one, keeping those spots locked down, because I want to cherish them. I want those people to know what they're getting, and they're getting the best possible product they can get. And that's exciting, because I'm pumped to pass down some of the things I'm learning with my own training to these guys, because, well, actually everyone that I coach, because it's working. Nothing is better than when a program works and you can kind of see the ins and outs and understand it, particularly in a Hyrox context. So super exciting. I'm pumped for that. Next topic. Now, I got a bit of a gripe, a bone to pick with social media. The irony is I use social media every day. But for me, this probably goes off the toxicity of it that I spoke about last week. It can be such a toxic place if you let it be a toxic place. I find myself, I don't really engage with a lot of people, to be honest. I engage with people in the Hyrox space, and if I see something really cool and that I like, I will always try and comment, because I believe it's important to try and show people that you read it. Doesn't matter. Like, one of my biggest things, I had this realization towards the end of last year, is like, I will comment just emojis on stuff, and you can probably read that as like insensitive, or he doesn't care enough to actually comment words. But in my head, I'm like, I don't really know what to say to this, but I know emojis are me commenting something, because I want to show you that it is worth showing like support in some way, shape or form, not just a like. I want to show that extra step. So for me, if I see stuff I love, I'll always comment on it if I've got time and I'm not like, I haven't accidentally opened my phone while I'm driving. I don't do that ever, by the way. So I'll always comment on stuff I like. The caveat to that is, if I see something I hate, I don't comment on it. I don't like roast people. Even I've had people like literally, I've had this page copy my posts page for page and just put AI images as backgrounds. Like there was one post they copied page for page and they put an AI guy like rowing and skiing and doing all the high rocks movements in front of the TV screen that said 5950 that you would take your photo in front of. And it was just like the most AI shit I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was just a complete rip of everything that I had in my post. It's like I had a couple people send it to me and I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? It was a good post. I get it. This is fake. This looks like shit. I don't care. Like, this is not a good quality post. I just commented on it. This looks familiar. Lol. But like, I'm not going to come and hate on it. I'm not going to go and roast them and be like, I just don't have the energy for that. So like where I'm going with this is I don't think it looks classy. It doesn't look good. It's not a good look. If you're someone who goes around commenting hate or like putting people down or just on other people's posts, I think honestly, if you have a problem with it and it's a really big problem with it, message them one-on-one. And if they don't reply, fuck mate, maybe it's just not worth following up because it requires energy and effort to go and do these things. Like it's just not worth it. I had a lot of you guys may not know this, or the ones watching this might actually, because I'm assuming you're the OGs. But Megan Jacoby, I think that's how you say her name, like roasted me early on. This might have been like last year at some stage because I took a post from her. I took inspiration from one of her posts. I copied the hook, did the exact same hook, should have changed it, my bad. And then I kind of rewrote everything in my own words and set it up on my own pictures and all that kind of stuff and posted it. And someone tagged her in it. And then she just fucking plastered me all over her Instagram, roasting me. Wouldn't reply to my messages in DMs, but would just comment shit and like plastered me all over her stories, roast me. And I just blocked her straight away. I was like, I'm not dealing with this, mate. I do not need you coming to me and like causing this horrible kind of experience when really how I would go about it is you message the person, you say, hey, this looks familiar. Like, what, did you copy my post? And then if I reply like a dickhead, okay, maybe you got to take it some other way or do something else about it. But if you send that message to me, odds are I'm going to be like, oh shit, sorry, I did actually draw inspiration from it and I probably haven't changed it enough. My bad. Let me fix that. Or I'll tag you in it so that like you feel better about it. You know, instead of plastering hate everywhere and trying to get people to, I had people messaging me shit. Like it wasn't a very nice feeling. All of those people got blocked because I don't have the time and energy for that. I don't want negative people coming in and pooping all over me. It's just shit. So long-winded way of saying, just try and make it a positive place. If you want social media to be a positive place, then embark on positivity yourself. Don't go around commenting on people's shit or saying stuff and putting them down because it doesn't help anyone. If you have an issue with something that someone says, don't go and belittle them publicly, message them privately, or make your own piece of content in a positive way about it, right? If someone says, anyone who rows is a dickhead, be like, guys, this is how, rowing has helped me in a positive way. Make a post about that instead of going and commenting on their post and sharing it and being like, you're an idiot. Doesn't work. Anyway, on to more positive things. So I did a question box, right? And I had the thought, I don't know what I was doing. And it was like, if you could snap your fingers and get one thing instantly that can't be money, what would you get? Now, I didn't actually think of an answer when I posted this question box, which is crazy. I should have, but I didn't. But some of the responses we had were great. One of them was to never get injured no matter how much I train. I actually rate this a lot because I would love that. Imagine that. You don't get injured. You could just train every day hard. You could rip 1 rep max deadlifts and then come in and fucking do power cleans the next day and you wouldn't get injured. You wouldn't hurt your back. You could run as many Ks as you wanted. Nothing. That'd be the best. I would love that. So good answer. Eternal good health or 100% health. Now, I think that's a good one too. Would that be the same as never get injured? Maybe. But I think in this day and age, particularly, I think health is something that we all cherish, and it's kind of scary. Like, I'm getting older. I'm turning 31 this year, and it's something you're kind of staring down the barrel of age, and you're like, shit, I don't know what's coming. Like, you could get a terminal illness, or you could get something that wipes you out completely, and that's scary. So having the guarantee of not having that would be something really cool. Now, I promise I'm not just going to read these out. I have a point at the end of this. There was a point to asking the question. Contentment. Now, I like that. Being content with where you're at. That's cool. I can get around that. Imagine just being super chill all the time, like a monk. That'd be the best. Discipline. Discipline is an interesting one. Not because it's bad, but I think it's good. Like, I think being disciplined is really good. But I think there is such thing as being too disciplined. And I would argue that that is something I probably struggle with. I like things to be in order and routined, and sometimes I am too disciplined to the point that it impacts my life negatively. So discipline is good, but I think sometimes you can discipline too hard and it doesn't feel very good. Time, I actually rate that. I rate that in the concept in like multiple avenues. Like, if you could have just more time in a day, that would be great. But if you could just guarantee yourself more time in life, that would be awesome, because you could get so much more done. But then would it be paradoxical in the fact that if you had unlimited time, would you get nothing done because you know you've got the time? And then someone wrote my left knee being called my left knee again instead of my bad knee. That's funny as. I actually have, my left knee is a bit dodgy. When I was younger, I had an arthroscopy, like a scrape out on my left knee, which I think was caused because I was a big chubby when I was a kid, and I like twisted it, and then I like snapped something in there and they had to cut it out. I was meant to have it operated on again and I never did. So my left knee is my dodgy knee, but I think it's my dodgy knee because my ankle has shit mobility, not because of the operation. When I was younger, that was a separate side story. Love it. ADHD all over the place. Endless chocolate. That's actually a great call. Love chocolate. And vegan chocolate is fucking expensive, man. So endless chocolate would be good. Although I would like endless individually wrapped chocolate, because once I open chocolate, it's gone. But if it's individually wrapped, then I'm able to control my portions, which is much nicer. A chest is funny. I wish I had a big bench, actually. My bench is like, it's not where I would like it to be. I mean, I could put time and effort into trying to build it, but I don't want to do that. I just want a big bench. Isn't that every guy's dream? Have a big bench? Anyway, to get to the point of why I asked this question, right? Sorry that I dragged you all through that. But I think a lot of these answers are within people's control, right? If you had to ask me, 2 years ago, what would I snap my fingers and get? It would be like, I'd love to just work for myself and be at home, chilling out, doing stuff, doing the things that I enjoy, training, and kind of have a business based around that. Now, I'm kind of doing that because I've taken the steps to do that and execute that. A lot of these things you could almost guarantee, right? Even down to the eternal good health and the never get injured no matter how much I train. If you structure your training correctly and you're like on top of working on the little things, the little bits here and there, you could train as much as you wanted, especially if you were in control of your nutrition and stuff like that. You can do that. That is possible. May not be as easy as snapping your fingers, but it's still doable. You can still take things and action things to do it. Same as eternal good health and, being super healthy. You can take actions towards that. You can cut out alcohol, stop eating processed food, go on a whole food diet. Whole food, like in my case, try and whole food plant-based. You eat healthier. You try and make sure you're putting the right things in your body. You don't overtrain. You try and mitigate stress as much as possible. Then you are going to be super healthy. Being content is an interesting one. I'm struggling with that. I'm getting better at it. I'm working with a psychologist to try and get better at it. But I think to be content, you have to understand what would bring that contentness. If you don't understand what would bring that contentness, then I'm afraid you're probably not going to get it, if that makes sense. You need to understand what it looks like. For me, it kind of looks like what I got now, which is where I get unstuck with my psychologist. But if you don't understand what it looks like, then you can't really take steps towards it. For example, if you're working in an office job, sitting in a building, and you understand that content for you is not being in that job, it's being in a job where you get to be out in nature, then you got to start taking steps in that direction. You got to get out of the office building is step number one. So you got to understand what content is. Being disciplined, I think, is something that is, it's hard because I'm a disciplined person. So for me, it's very easy. I just do it. But I would start small and be disciplined with small actions. And you can build that habit pretty quickly. You just got to stick to it. Find something that's going to help you be disciplined. And then time, you've just got to prioritize things better. You got to understand what is the most important thing to you right now. Prioritize that. That gets you time. And then everything else, second. And then you're left, like the other stuff is, not as super important, but you get the point. The point is you could snap your fingers and literally get anything you wanted right now. It will require a little more effort than snapping your fingers, but you can get it. So if you had an answer to that question, if you could snap your fingers right now, what would you get? And it can't be money. Even if it's money, honestly, you can start taking steps towards that. Bottom line is anything is possible and you can make it so. You've just got to start taking steps towards it. Now, I want to talk about this kit that I'm wearing. LSKD's kit for Stockholm. I'm going to try and weave in, not a sponsor, but I want to talk about the brands that I work with because there's a reason I work with them. I don't work with them because I get stuff from them. I mean, that is part of it, but it's also because I use them, right? I don't just take stuff for free. I hate it. There are so many brands that I actually say, no, don't send me things because A, I'm not going to post about it, and B, it's going to clutter up my fucking house and I don't use it. So don't bother. LSKD is not one of those brands. LSKD is one of those brands that I wear every single day and I wear through all of their clothes, and they've just sent out the LSKD Athlete Worlds kit. You can see my back maybe a little bit if you're watching this. The jacket's sick. But if you want any LSKD stuff, I do have a discount. I'll probably link it below. Anth LSKD. It'll get you 15% off. Jump in there, get yourself out. Their kit is cheap for the value you get, man. I love it. I've been wearing their running tights, their running shorts, everything for years and cannot complain. It's my favorite stuff. That is the reason I work with them. And if you buy stuff through that link, it supports me a little bit too, which helps me out and helps me do this kind of stuff, which is fun. Let's finish off by going through some listener questions. So someone actually asked, which I was like, bro, come on, chill out. We want the 12 kilo wall ball challenge back, the wall balls challenge, which is something I did, I think, midway through last year. I was trying to get 100 reps at a 30-pound wall ball, and I stopped the challenge because it was burning me out into a race. I can't remember what race it was. And then I started the new program, and I just let the challenge go. But some people still remember the OG challenge and want it back. And the idea of the challenge was every day I would try and get 100 reps with the 30-pound ball, and it burnt me out pretty quickly. I think I made it to just over a week, and it sucked. First thing is it's 13.6 kilos, not 12 kilos. So it's quite a lot heavier. I can do 100 with 12 kilo ball. 13.6, different story, very heavy. But maybe I will bring it back. 3 days a week I could actually work with. He suggested doing it an EMOM 3 days a week. But at the moment my left knee's playing up because of my ankle. So not now, not as I lead into Worlds, but I will consider bringing it back because it was a fun challenge and it's easy content because it means every day I get a video that I can make for Instagram, right? Which is all part of it. This one's a banger. Are people using training to solve mental health issues rather than seeking help? 100%, yes. What do you mean, are they? Yes, they are. All the time, 100%. I've done it, still do a little bit. I think for me, the biggest thing was distinguishing between when I was training because I needed to train and when I was training because I felt like I needed to train. I used to punish myself out there. Doing my Ironman training was the best thing ever for someone who is masking their mental health with training because you got to train so much. And I was just willing myself every single day to get out there and do more and more and more, which isn't great. You end up burnt out and you end up in a heap. So do I think people are doing it? Yes. How do you get around it? It's hard. You've got to try and look at when you get sick. How does it feel when you get sick? Are you panicking because you're like, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, I need to do something. Oh, trying to distract yourself. If you are, then you probably need to look at your mental health a little more. And if you're worried about, like, if you had training taken away from you today, how would you feel? Are you going to be angry, irritated, stressed out, anxious, all of these things? If the answer is yes, then you probably need to look at your mental health. If the answer is no, then maybe you don't need to. But I think a lot of people do, and it sucks because it is such a good way to cope as well. Compared to drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, exercise is the best. But at the same time, there are still negative sides to it. Like anything that's addictive and anything that you're addicted to as a coping mechanism is negative in some context. Before we move on to the next one, I've got to change the camera battery. Next question. How do you stay consistent when motivation completely disappears? So I think motivation is like unreliable. It's not always, but this is something I learned pretty early on, is it's fleeting. I'm not motivated all the time, but I have goals that I want to achieve and I understand what needs to be done to achieve those goals. And sometimes that is, more important. I think it comes from like where the goal comes from. If the goal is genuine, it's something you genuinely want, you're going to do what you need to do to get it done. But if it's something that you're like, oh, yeah, all right, I'll set this goal, you're probably not going to tick all the boxes towards it. So I think you need to understand where the goal is coming from. Is it something you genuinely want to do? And if it is, go and do it. And again, start small. You don't need to try and tick these giant things off straight away. If you struggle to get out of bed and get into the gym, then like I heard a saying that it was like, well, then just get out of bed. Get out of bed, go look at yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, cool. Then go back to sleep. Do that for a week. And then next week, get up, go upstairs, go to the car. Then the next week, you go to the car, you get in the car, you go to the gym. And then the week after that, you go to the car, get in the car, go to the gym, get in the gym, do the thing. Like you slowly build the habits that work. So I think motivation's fleeting. So try and use something else as a source. Because I guarantee you, if you are in a 12-week training block towards something, by week 8, your motivation is going to be paper thin, especially if it's a hard training block, and you're going to need something else to help you get through. And if you understand the process and you understand why you're doing things, then it's going to be a lot easier. How do you know when to push through discomfort versus when to back off? Now, this is so hard to put into words. I've experienced this myself a lot. In terms of training and injuries and stuff like that. I think my rule of thumb is if you feel it at night while you're lying in bed, it's probably something to look at and go get checked out. If it is still sore, more than 3 days after, probably get it checked out. If it doesn't get better and gets worse during the session, stop. Don't keep going. Like for me, my hip, when I heard it towards the end of last year, it would get worse and worse and worse during the session. Then I would lie there in bed at night and it would throb and it would take a couple of days to get better, and then I'd go and do it again. The same thing would happen over again. Now, the pain with my hip is different. If I warm up properly and my hips open up and they stretch and lengthen and all that kind of stuff, it feels $1,000,000. And I don't feel it at night. Once I get going and once I'm stretched and warm, it's fine. It doesn't come back and bite me later in the day. So I think that's a massive factor, is you need to be aware of when it's sore and how long it's sore afterwards. I feel like that answers, I guess, for the most part, right? And then, if you're talking about training as a whole, if you start to just feel like you're always tired when you wake up, like I'm getting to that point now in my training block. I'm really tired getting out of bed in the mornings, but I'm also aware that I've got one more week of training or this is probably the last week before I kind of pull my training back into Worlds. So, I know where I'm at in my training. What does your weekly training structure actually look like right now? I'm probably not going to talk about that actually because it's going to take too long. There's too much stuff. But to give a brief overview, I've only got one strength session. I run hard Monday, hard Friday. I do a mixed session on Wednesday. Monday, I do 2 sessions. The second session is like an aerobic density session with running and Hyrox movements. Friday, I do a 2-part session where I'll do intervals as part 1 and then mixed stuff as part 2. Tuesday, Thursday, super easy bike, and Saturday is like a bit of a free, fun day. It's my favorite day of the week. And then I feel like that was it. Yeah, so what's coming up next? I'll probably do another episode. I'll try and record one next week because then I can drop it while I'm away in Stockholm. But then the next one after that will be the Stockholm recap because I'll be back and I'll be able to give you a recap of the whole episode. This is going to be out on Spotify, YouTube, all of the podcast places. I think it's on Apple Podcasts. I was actually supposed to check that, but I forgot. But yeah, if you have questions for next week or you have a topic you would like me to touch on during the episode, please put it in somewhere because it's going to help me structure things better and it's going to help me understand what you guys want to hear. I feel like I've got a lot of stuff in this brain and trying to articulate it and get it out and categorize it is a little hard. So if you could help me with that, that would be fantastic. But that's it. That's it for this week, guys. Enjoy your week, enjoy your training, enjoy your sleep, enjoy your eating, enjoy your hydration, and I will chat to you guys next week in 2 weeks for another episode of The Rundown. I also decided on no music because, I don't know, one thing before I go, I'm trying to lower the barrier to entry to all of this stuff. So podcasts, I'm minimal editing, YouTube, if I go back to that, minimal editing. It's going to be so raw. You guys are going to get everything. You're not going to get any editing. I might put one song in if it needs it, but unlikely because I want to lower the barrier to entry so that I can do these things and not make them too hard for myself. So that's the bonus little tip. Bye. Have a good week.